Welcome back to our second video in Notes 1.3, still looking at statistical methods. In this case, we are going to continue our conversation about means. Remember, my mean stats teacher made me find my average. But now we're looking at it from the sense of a weighted mean. Think about this in the sense of like a grade. You know that a test grade typically weighs or counts more than, say, a homework. That's what we mean by a weighted mean, where some of your data should be considered more or weighted heavier than something else. So the fancy way of saying this or writing this is that we need to add up. This means sum our x's times our weights divided by the sum to add up our weights. But go ahead and write this out as well. The formula, in order to calculate the weighted mean, we add up, aka the sum of our values times their weights. And then we divide that by the sum, or once we add up, just the weights. This is going to be easiest for us to do in an actual example. So example 3. The syllabus in Walter Statistics class states that the final grade is determined by 40% test, homework 20%, quizzes 10%, and the final exam 30%. We're going to go ahead and do this by hand first. Then I will show you how to do it in the calculator. Often when I am doing this weighted concept, I make it a table to organize, and I put my values on one side and what we call the weights on the other. So my value is like I had an 83 test average. The weight is where we say tests were worth 40%. So 40%, which is really 0.40 as a decimal. The next category, I had a value on my homeworks of 98. That homework was weighted by 20%. 20% as a decimal, 0.20. Quizzes, 90 average at 10, which is 0.10 for my weight. And last but not least, final exam, 87 value and a 30% weight. So in order to calculate my weighted mean, now weighted mean, you'll notice most of the time we use X bar for our weights. This is technically all the grades, so I would still accept it if you put mu. But essentially, in order to find this average, we need to first calculate the value times its weight. Value times its weight, value times weight, value times weight. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out first. 83 needs to get multiplied by 0.4. 98 needs to be multiplied by 0.2. 90 should be multiplied by 0.1. And 87 should be multiplied by 0.3. Once we have calculated our values times weights, you have to do that part first, then we add them up. When we get done, we'll divide the whole thing by our weights, the total, the sum of them. So that would be the 0.4 plus the 0.2 plus the 0.1 plus the 0.3. So let's go ahead and bring our calculator out. All right, so across the top, I have 83 times 0.4 plus 98 times 0.2 plus 90 times 0.1 plus 87 times 0.3. So across the top, I get 87.9. And now across the bottom, I need to add up my total. Now, percentages, right, our grades, it should always total to 100% or 1. But good to always double check. And it does. His average is an 87.9. Now in this example, I did have us do it by hand just so we were aware of how the calculation was set up. Value times weight, add them up, divide by my weights. However, I've also mentioned that this is something you could do in your calculator. So let's talk about that, and then we're going to use the calculator for example 4. So just like we started out with in our previous example, where we were looking at means in general, I would start by going to Stat and Edit. I have to tell my calculator what my grades are. So I would put his grades in the first category. In the first list. So that's where I would put the 83, 98, 90, and 87. But now that's not the only values I'm dealing with. So scroll over to the right into your second list, and here's where I'm going to put my weights, the 0.4, the 0.2, 0.1, and 0.3. So we put our original values in list 1, and our weights in list 2. Next up, just as we did previously, we're going to go to Stats again. Let me actually walk us through this. Stat. But now we're going to move over to Calculate. Still looking at one variable, statistics. But now is where I tell my calculator I don't have one, I have 2 lists. So my original list with my values is still in L1, but my frequencies, aka my weights, are in L2. So you need to hit the second 2. Now we can calculate. Notice they got the same X-bar average we did, 87.9. So a lot of these calculations can be done in the calculator. Some of them I will show you how to do by hand as well, but some of them we will go straight into that calculator version, that calculator process. So example 4, your grades from last semester are in the table. This time all they give us is a letter grade. The grading system assigns points as follows. An A is worth 4, a B is worth 3, a C is worth 2, D is worth 1, and F is worth 0 points. Determine your grade point average. So this is actually about to give you your GPA. Your actual grade, just like we did previously, are our values. But now, rather than a percentage to look at for my weights, now my weights are my credit hours, right? A 3-hour course versus a 4-hour course. So before we do anything, we need to translate our letter grade C into its point value. So C is worth 2 points. C is worth 2 points. D is worth 1 point. A is worth 4 points. C again is worth 2. And now a B is worth 3 points. So we're going to put those values, these, into our list 1 in the calculator. And the weights, my credit hours, go into L2. And we're going to find our GPA, aka our weighted average. So start off with Stats, Edit. Stats, Edit. Now we already have data in that first list, so you can go up and highlight L1 and then hit Clear, Enter. Scroll up to L2 hit clear, enter. Now, in our first list, 2, 2, 1, 4, 2, 3, our values. In our second list, L2 is where we're going to put our weights, our credit hours. So 3, 4, 1, 3, 2, and 3. Your list should always line up, right? I shouldn't have an extra value down here at the bottom. They should always match. Otherwise, something's going to be throwing a fit in your calculator. Now to actually find that GPA, that average grade point, I'm going to hit stats again. But this time we're going to go to calc because we want to calculate. So stats, scoot over to calc, 1 bar statistics, 1 bar stats. My values are in list 1. My frequencies, aka my weights, are in list 2. I can calculate. This particular student, grade point average, look for X bar, remember, because that means the mean. Their average GPA is 2.5. Awesome. In terms of using these calculators, make sure that you're giving me something to go off of in terms of your work. I need to see where you change these letters into their points. Make sure you tell me which one you put into the first list, which one you put into the second list. I also want to know what calculator steps you followed. For these problems that are in the calculator, I can't read your mind. I can't see what you typed in. So make sure you show it. It's like showing your work by writing out the buttons you selected. All right, we're going to do one more for this video. And this last example is still considered a weighted mean. However, it's called a mean for grouped data or a mean for a frequency distribution. Remember, we dealt with frequency distributions in our last lesson, 1.2, and I can actually find the average of my data values when they're in that frequency distribution. To do it, I just set it up like a weighted mean, but note that my values use the class midpoint. So when I take the sum on top, it's my midpoints times the frequency divided by total frequency. Now again, we are going to be able to use our calculator for this. So our first list will be my class midpoints. My second list, L2, are my frequencies from that frequency distribution. So hopefully this example here looks familiar. This frequency distribution is one that we pulled from our first example in 1.2. And before we can do anything, I have to find my class midpoints. So remember, the midpoint can be found by taking my lower limit plus my upper limit and divide by 2. So of the first class, that's 1 plus 5 divided by 2. Well, 1 plus 5 is 6. When I divide by 2, it gives me a class midpoint for my first class to be 3. From there, let's make our life simple. Remember, our width was 5. Our width in the next class was 5. So I can go 3 plus 5 is 8, plus 5 is 13, plus 5, plus 5, and plus 5. These are our values that we're going to put into L1. Our frequencies are given to us, 5, 8, 6, 8, 5, and 4. And this is just a chart that sets us up if we were going to do this by hand. Remember, our weights, or our frequencies in this case, are going to go into L2. So we're not actually going to complete the table at this point. Instead, we're going to move over to our calculator. We're going to put our, start off with our stats, edit, because we need to go into our lists. So stats, maybe if it wants to turn on, edit. I'm going to go ahead and clear out my lists because I don't want to accidentally combine or use things from a different example. So 3, 8, 13, 18, 23, 28, those midpoints. Next up, our frequencies, 5, 8, 6, 8, 5, 4. My lists are the same length. I can now go to Stats, Calc, and I'm going to select 1 var statistics. Stats, Calc, 1 var statistics. Now my calculator is remembering our previous example. So I have L1, my values, L2, my frequencies, and I can calculate. The average, the mean, remember we use X bar to show it. The average for this frequency distribution is 14.667. If we were to round to say 1 decimal place, this would make me round up to 14.7 as my average. All right, friends, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. In our next video, we're going to talk about some other ways to find the center of our data.